The grand chamber of Apex Prime had never felt so cold. Ambassador David Chen stood at the human delegation podium, his hands gripping the edges so tightly his knuckles turned white. Above him, the massive holographic display showed the same terrible image that had haunted his dreams for weeks. Red zones spread across the galactic map like a disease, each one representing a sector consumed by the Vorgoth swarm. The chamber itself was a masterpiece of galactic engineering. A ring-shaped station the size of a small moon, Apex Prime had served as the seat of the Galactic Council for over 10,000 years. The ceiling stretched hundreds of meters overhead, embedded with crystals that mimicked the stars outside. Around the circular floor, representatives from 248 civilizations occupied their designated spaces. Some stood on platforms, others floated in containment fields. A few existed as pure energy, their thoughts translated into words by ancient machines. Chen had been to dozens of council sessions in his 5 years as Earth's ambassador. He had argued about trade disputes and mineral rights. He had negotiated cultural exchange programs and shipping lane regulations. But today was different. Today, the council would decide whether to abandon billions of lives to save trillions more. At the center of the chamber, High Counselor Seth Rax of the Xenathi raised one of his crystalline appendages. The Xenathi were among the oldest races in the galaxy. Their bodies were living crystal, their minds vast and ancient. Humans called them the Ice Philosophers because of their cold logic and transparent forms. Colored light pulsed through Sethrax's body as he spoke, his voice carrying the weight of millennia. The war against the Vorgoth swarm has continued for 32 standard years, Sethrax began. His words were translated instantly into every language in the chamber. Our combined fleets have fought with honor and courage. We have won many battles. But we are losing the war. A holographic display appeared above the center of the chamber. Numbers scrolled past, each one representing ships lost, worlds consumed, lives ended. Chen felt sick watching the count climb higher and higher. The Vorgoth are not like any enemy we have faced before, continued a Lumen representative. Her form a swirling cloud of golden energy contained in a specialized field. The Lumens rarely involved themselves in material conflicts, but even they had sent forces against the swarm. They do not negotiate. They do not retreat. They consume all biological matter and convert it into more of themselves. Every world they take makes them stronger, while we grow weaker. A Kelthari general stood next, his reptilian features grim. The Kelthari were warriors, their culture built on honor and strength. If even they were speaking of retreat, the situation was desperate. Our tactical computers have run every scenario. We have consulted with the finest military minds of 100 civilizations. The mathematics are clear. Well, people are read inside. We cannot win this war through conventional means. Chen wanted to shout, to argue, to demand they keep fighting. But he forced himself to remain silent and listen. Around him, other representatives shifted nervously. He could see fear on 100 different faces, expressed through 100 different physiologies. Seth Rax raised his appendage again. The chamber fell silent. The council has developed a proposal. We call it the Exodus Protocol. We will establish a defensive perimeter around the core sectors of the galaxy. We will consolidate our forces behind barriers that the Vorgoth cannot easily breach. Yes. This means abandoning the Outer Rim territories. Yes. This means losing systems and worlds. But it means survival. For the majority of galactic civilization, the holographic display changed. Now it showed a new map. A thick blue line divided the galaxy into 2 sections. Everything outside the line was colored in dark gray. Chen's heart sank as he searched for Earth's location. There, in the Outer Rim, far beyond the proposed defensive line, was Sol System and all 47 human colony worlds. Humanity would be abandoned. Around the chamber, voices rose in discussion. Some representatives argued passionately for their home systems. Others quietly accepted the mathematical reality. Chen listened as the Xanathi presented their calculations. The defensive line could be held with a 93% probability of success, but attempting to defend the entire galaxy reduced that probability to less than 8%. When Councillor Vritak, of the Delphian Union, proposed the formal vote, Chen knew he had to speak. He activated his podium's communication system. His voice, small and human and alone, echoed through the vast chamber. Honored councillors, I speak for Earth and the United Terran Colonies. We understand the mathematics you have presented. We recognize the logic of consolidation. But I must ask you to reconsider. Honored. Hundreds of eyes, sensors, and awareness fields focused on him. Chen felt like an insect under a microscope. Humanity has been part of this council for 200 years. We are young, yes. Our technology is limited compared to the elder races. But we have always contributed what we could to the common defense. Now you propose to abandon not just humanity, but dozens of younger species who inhabit the outer rim. You are asking us to accept extinction, so that others may live. Sethrax's crystalline form pulsed with cool blue light. Ambassador Chen, no one denies the tragedy of this decision. But the survival of galactic civilization requires difficult choices. The outer rim simply cannot be defended with available resources. Then give us those resources, Chen said, his voice rising. Reinforce our fleets. Share your technology. Let us stand together against this threat. A Corvan scientist, his insectoid form clicking with agitation, responded. Ambassador, your species has been in space for barely 3 centuries. The Vorgoth have consumed civilizations millions of years old. What makes you think humanity could succeed where the ancients have failed? Chen had prepared for this moment. He had studied Earth's history, had read the accounts of impossible victories and desperate stands. Because we don't know when to quit. Because humanity has a long history of fighting battles we shouldn't win and winning them anyway. Because surrender is not in our nature. The Lumen representative's energy form flickered with what might have been sympathy. Noble words, Ambassador. But nobility does not stop the swarm. We have seen entire star systems consumed in days. We have watched as civilizations far more advanced than yours were reduced to base organic compounds. This is not about courage. This is about mathematics. Mathematics can be wrong, Chen said quietly. Variables can change, new factors can emerge. All I ask is that you don't make this decision in fear. High Counselor Sethrax stood silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried a note of finality. The Council will vote. All in favor of implementing the Exodus Protocol, signify now. Around the chamber, lights began to appear above each delegation's position. Green for yes, red for no. Chen watched as green light after green light illuminated. The Xanathi voted yes. The Lumens voted yes. The Keltharii, warriors who had fought beside human soldiers, voted yes. The Corvans, the Delphians, the Tharaki, all voted yes. Chen looked at the human delegation podium. His hand hovered over the control panel. He could vote yes and save himself the pain of what was coming. He could accept the inevitable and hope that somehow humanity would find a way to evacuate before the Vorgoth arrived. He pressed the red button. The final tally appeared above the center of the chamber. 247 votes for the Exodus Protocol. 1 vote against. The measure passed with overwhelming support. As the chamber erupted in discussion about implementation timelines and resource allocation, Chen stood alone at his podium. He felt a presence beside him and turned to see Crystallis 7, a young Xanathi scientist who had worked with human researchers on several projects. I am sorry, Ambassador, Crystallis 7 said, their crystalline voice soft with genuine regret. The mathematics truly are clear. If there were any other way. There's always another way, Chen said. We just haven't found it yet. What will humanity do? Crystallis 7 asked. Chen thought about Earth, about the billions of humans living on colony worlds, scattered across dozens of star systems. He thought about the mining operations on New Caledonia, the agricultural domes of New Shanghai, the research stations orbiting Proxima. All of it would be left behind when the alien fleets retreated to their defensive line. "We'll do what we always do," Chen said. "We'll fight." The next week was chaos. The Galactic Council moved with terrifying efficiency to implement the Exodus Protocol. Massive fleet carriers arrived at Apex Prime to evacuate Council personnel. Warships that had been defending Outer Rim systems received orders to fall back to the defensive perimeter. Supply depots began shutting down. Research stations transmitted their data to core world servers and prepared to be abandoned. Chen spent his days trying to negotiate for supplies, for weapons, for any resources the Council could spare for humanity's defense. He spent his nights in his quarters, staring at reports from Earth. The United Earth Coalition was mobilizing every available ship. The military was calling up reserves. Civilian vessels were being converted into makeshift warships. On the 7th day after the vote, Chen stood at the observation deck of Apex Prime and watched the last Allied fleet depart. The Xanathi Fifth Armada had been defending the Serpentis sector, close to several human colonies. Now, their massive dreadnoughts were jumping to hyperspace, leaving the sector defenseless. Chen pressed his hand against the transparent aluminum window. Outside, the stars looked the same as always. Beautiful, cold, indifferent. Somewhere out there, beyond the light of friendly suns, the Vorgath swarm was coming, and humanity would face them alone. His communicator chimed. A priority message from Earth. Chen opened it and read the words from Fleet Admiral Sarah Okonkwo, commander of all United Earth Coalition military forces. Ambassador Chen, the Council has made their decision. Now we make ours. Tell them that humanity does not abandon our own. Tell them that we will defend every human world, every human life, to our last ship and our last breath. Tell them that if the galaxy will not stand with us, then we will stand alone. Earth has sent me a simple order, and I relay it to you now. Chen read the message 3 times. He felt something burning in his chest, something that pushed back against the cold mathematics and logical retreat of the elder races. It was human stubbornness, that ancient refusal to accept the impossible. He walked to the communications center and sent a message to all council members. It was brief, just 3 sentences. Humanity thanks the Council for 200 years of cooperation and friendship. We understand your decision and harbor no resentment. However, humanity will not be retreating. We stand our ground. The responses came quickly. Some expressed admiration for human courage. Others called it foolish suicide. A few even offered private donations of supplies and equipment. Though they could not officially oppose the Council's decision, Chen didn't care about their opinions anymore. He began making arrangements to return to Earth. His job as ambassador to a council that had abandoned his people was finished. Now he would serve in whatever capacity his world needed. On his last night at Apex Prime, Crystallis 7 visited him. The young Xanathi stood in the doorway of Chen's quarters, light pulsing uncertainly through their crystalline form. I wanted to say goodbye, Ambassador, and to give you this. Crystallis 7 extended an appendage holding a data chip. It contains every tactical analysis I have conducted on the Vorgath. Official council studies say the swarm is unbeatable, but I have found inconsistencies, patterns that might be exploitable. I cannot say this publicly without losing my position, but I believe there may be ways to hurt them that the elder races have not considered. Chen took the chip carefully. Why are you giving this to me? Because the council has become old and afraid, Crystallis 7 said. We have forgotten how to take risks. But I watch humanity, and I see something we have lost. You still believe impossible things are possible. Perhaps that belief will make a difference. I hope so. Ambassador Chen. I truly hope so. After Crystallis 7 left, Chen packed his few belongings. Tomorrow he would board the last transport to Earth. He would leave behind the Grand Chamber and the ancient wisdom of the Galactic Council. He would return home to a world preparing for war. As he sealed his luggage, Chen looked at the data chip Crystallis 7 had given him. Maybe it contained something useful. Maybe it was just the guilty conscience of someone who had voted for abandonment. Either way, it represented something important. It meant humanity was not entirely alone. Somewhere in the galaxy, someone believed they had a chance. Chen smiled grimly and placed the chip in his pocket. Humanity had faced extinction before. They had fought impossible wars and survived unsurvivable catastrophes. This time would be no different. The Vorgath were coming. Let them come. Humanity would be waiting. The emergency session of the United Earth Coalition had been running for 14 hours straight. The circular conference room deep beneath Geneva was packed with military officers, government officials, and scientific advisors. Holographic displays covered every wall, showing real-time data from all 47 human colony worlds. Red warning indicators blinked with increasing frequency as alien fleets completed their withdrawal from the Outer Rim. Fleet Admiral Sarah Okonkwo stood at the head of the table. At 63 years old, she had served in the Coalition Navy for 42 years. She had commanded vessels in pirate suppression campaigns and border disputes. She had trained thousands of officers and designed hundreds of tactical scenarios. But nothing in her long career had prepared her for this moment. Latest intelligence reports confirm that the last Xenathi ships have departed the Serpentis sector, reported Colonel James Park, the Coalition's chief intelligence officer. The Keltharii finished their withdrawal from the Perseus Arm 6 hours ago. As of this moment, there are no Allied military vessels within 50 light-years of any human colony. Okonkwo studied the map displayed above the table. 47 human worlds scattered across 12 sectors, and every single one of them was now exposed. Behind her, she heard someone curse quietly. "What are our total military assets?" asked President Maria Santos, Earth's civilian leader. "We have 214 warships of various classes," Okonkwo replied. 78 destroyers, 43 frigates, 32 cruisers, 8 heavy cruisers, and 3 dreadnoughts. We also have approximately 1,000 smaller vessels, including patrol boats, transports, and civilian ships that could be armed. "Against what the Vorgath will bring?" asked General Dmitry Volkov, commander of Coalition ground forces. Okonkwo didn't sugarcoat it. "We are massively outnumbered. Council intelligence estimates the Vorgath have consumed enough biomass to produce tens of thousands of bioships. They can replace losses faster than we can destroy them." Silence fell over the room. Someone coughed. Another person shifted in their seat. Everyone understood what those numbers meant. Ambassador Chen, recently returned from Apex Prime, spoke up from his position near the wall. "Then we don't fight them the way the Council did. We don't meet them in fleet engagements, where they can use superior numbers. What do you suggest, Ambassador?" President Santos asked. Chen stepped forward and gestured at the holographic display. "The Council races fought the Vorgath with honor. They engaged in organized battles with clear rules of engagement. They tried to minimize collateral damage and preserve infrastructure. That's why they lost. And humanity will fight differently?" asked Dr. James Park, head of Coalition Weapons Research and Colonel Park's younger brother. "We already do," Chen said. "Look at Earth's military history. Guerrilla warfare. Asymmetric tactics. Fighting dirty when necessary. The alien races think of war as a chess game. Humanity thinks of it as a street fight, where the only rule is to survive." Okonkwo felt something shift in the room. She saw officers sitting up straighter. She watched as the despair on people's faces began mixing with something else. Determination. "The ambassador is right," Okonkwo said. "We cannot beat the Vorgath in a fair fight, so we make the fight unfair. We use every advantage we have, break every rule they expect us to follow, and make them pay in blood for every inch they take. What exactly are you proposing, Admiral? President Santos asked. Okonkwo began pacing around the table. First, we evacuate non-essential personnel from the most vulnerable colonies. Get civilians to fortified worlds where we can concentrate our defenses. Second, we convert every available civilian ship into a weapon. If it has an engine and can mount a gun, it joins the fleet. Third, we develop weapons and tactics specifically designed to hurt the Vorgath. Dr. Park leaned forward. My team has been studying the data Crystallis 7 gave us. The Vorgath bioships have vulnerabilities. They rely on a hive mind network for coordination. If we can disrupt that network, even temporarily, we can create chaos in their formations. How do we disrupt a hive mind? Someone asked. Radiation, for one thing, Doctor. Park said. Intense electromagnetic pulses. The Vorgath are organic, which means they are vulnerable to things that affect biological systems. Nuclear weapons, for example. The Council banned nuclear weapons in space combat 2,000 years ago, Colonel Park pointed out. The Council abandoned us, Okonkwo said flatly. Their rules no longer apply. If nuclear weapons can hurt the Vorgath, we use them. President Santos stood. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, but her voice carried authority. The Council expects us to die quietly, to be one more failed civilization that the Vorgath erased from the galaxy. I say we prove them wrong. We show them that humanity does not go gentle into that good night. She looked around the table, making eye contact with each person present. I am authorizing Admiral Okonkwo to use any means necessary to defend human worlds. Any weapons, any tactics, any strategies she deems appropriate. The only standing order is this. We survive. Okonkwo nodded. Then we start preparing immediately. General Volkov, I need you to establish ground defense plans for every colony world. If the Vorgath land, I want them to regret it. Colonel Park, your intelligence teams need to track Vorgath movements and give us advance warning. Dr. Park, your research division has unlimited resources. Find ways to kill these things. Crosses. Over the next 3 weeks, humanity transformed itself into a fortress. Every shipyard in every human system worked 24 hours a day. Civilian vessels underwent rapid militarization. Mining ships had missile pods welded to their hulls. Transport freighters became troop carriers. Even luxury cruise liners were converted into hospital ships and mobile command centers. Captain Marcus Webb of the destroyer Indomitable watched the preparations from his ship's bridge. The Indomitable was a Tempest-class destroyer, one of the newer vessels in the Coalition fleet. Webb had commanded her for 2 years, running anti-piracy patrols and escorting trade convoys. Now he was preparing to fight an alien swarm that had devoured civilizations millions of years old. Status report. Webb ordered. His executive officer, Commander Lisa Torres, read from her datapad. Weapons, systems, at maximum efficiency. We have taken on additional missile pods from the New Berlin Armory. Crew is at full strength with an additional 20 Marines embarked. Supplies loaded for extended operations. Webb nodded. Around the Indomitable, dozens of other ships were making similar preparations. He could see the cruiser Defiant taking on ammunition. The frigate Relentless was running engine tests. Fighter craft from the carrier Valiant were conducting training exercises. Message from Fleet Command, reported Lieutenant Chen at Communications. All ships are to proceed to Rally Point Sigma 7. We are being deployed to defend New Caledonia. Webb felt his stomach tighten. New Caledonia was one of humanity's oldest colonies, home to 3 million people. It was also directly in the path of the advancing Vorgath swarm. Set course for Sigma 7, Webb ordered. Maximum speed. The Indomitable's engines flared to life. Around her, the rest of the fleet began moving. Webb watched them go. This desperate collection of warships and armed civilians, preparing to fight an impossible war. Commander Keiko Tanaka sat in the cockpit of her fighter, running through her pre-flight checklist for the 100th time. The fighter was a Raptor-class interceptor, fast and maneuverable but lightly armored. Tanaka had been flying combat missions for 12 years. She had fought pirates and smugglers. She had even engaged in a brief skirmish with a Corvan raider. But she had never fought anything like the Vorgath. "Blue Squadron, sound off," she said into her comm system. One by one, her pilots responded. 12 fighters total, plus her own. 13 ships and 13 pilots, preparing to face a swarm that blackened entire star systems. "Listen up," Tanaka said. "I know what you've all heard about the Vorgath. I know the rumors and the horror stories. Yes, they are dangerous. Yes, they have consumed countless worlds. But they have never fought humanity before. They have never faced pilots who learned to fly by racing through asteroid fields and buzzing cargo haulers. They have never seen what we can do when we are fighting for our homes and our families." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We are going to New Caledonia. When the Vorgath arrive, we are going to show them that humanity's skies belong to us. Stay sharp, stay focused, and remember your training. Blue Squadron, prepare for launch." The fighters lifted off from the carrier deck one by one. Tanaka felt the familiar surge of acceleration as her Raptor cleared the launch tube and emerged into open space. Around her, the rest of Blue Squadron formed up in a loose formation. Ahead, through the vast darkness of space, New Caledonia hung like a blue jewel. Tanaka had visited the colony once, years ago. She remembered green fields and clean cities, mountains and oceans that reminded her of Earth. 3 million people called that world home. The Vorgath would have to go through her to get to them. The Vorgath arrived at New Caledonia 4 days later. Long-range sensors detected them first. A massive fleet of organic ships moving through space like a school of predatory fish. The bioships were grotesque things, all twisted bone and pulsing tissue. They ranged in size from small fighters to massive dreadnoughts the size of mountains. Admiral Okonkwo watched the sensor displays from her flagship, the dreadnought, Unconquered. The numbers were worse than intelligence had predicted. Over 300 Vorgath bioships were approaching New Caledonia. Her own fleet numbered 78 vessels. "All ships, battle stations," Okonkwo ordered. "Prepare to engage." The human fleet moved into formation. Heavier ships took positions at the center, their thick armor and powerful weapons forming the main battle line. Destroyers and frigates spread out on the flanks, ready to harass and distract. Fighters launched from carriers, swarming out like angry hornets. Captain Webb stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching as the range closed. 500,000 kilometers. 400,000. 300,000. "Weapon range in 30 seconds, reported Torres. "All batteries prepare to fire," Webb ordered. His hands gripped the arms of his command chair. Around him, his crew worked with practiced efficiency. They were scared. He could see it in their eyes. But they were ready. "Range achieved," Torres announced. "All ships." Okonkwo's voice came over the fleet channel. "Fire at will." The human fleet opened up with everything they had. Missiles streaked across the void, their engines burning bright against the darkness. Railgun rounds accelerated to significant fractions of light speed. Energy weapons painted the space between the fleets with beams of concentrated destruction. The Vorgath returned fire. Bioplasma weapons spat green glowing projectiles. Organic missiles spiraled through space, seeking targets. Living fighter craft, more like flying mouths than spacecraft, screamed toward the human lines. Webb watched as a frigate to his port side took a direct hit from a plasma weapon. The ship's shields flared and collapsed. The second hit tore through the hull, venting atmosphere and bodies into space. "Indomitable, focus fire on that biocruiser at coordinates 479er, Webb ordered. The destroyer's main railgun fired, the recoil shaking the entire ship. The tungsten round hit the biocruiser's flank, punching through tissue and bone. The creature ship screamed, a sound that somehow transmitted through the vacuum and resonated on every human ship's hull. "It is still functional," Torres reported, "regenerating damaged sections." "Hit it again," Webb said. "And again. Don't let it heal." The Indomitable poured fire into the biocruiser. Around them, the battle devolved into chaos. Ships on both sides exploded or were torn apart. Fighter craft dueled among the larger vessels. The space around New Caledonia became a graveyard. Commander Tanaka pulled her fighter through a hard turn, dodging a stream of bioplasma from a Vorgath fighter. The thing pursuing her looked like a flying lamprey. All teeth and hunger, she rolled inverted and hit her afterburners, climbing above the creature's firing arc. "Blue 3, you have 2 hostiles on your 6, she called out. "I see them, Commander. Could use some help here." Tanaka swung her fighter around and targeted the Vorgoth pursuing Blue 3. Her missiles locked on and fired. The projectiles struck the biofighter and detonated, turning it into expanding clouds of frozen organic matter. But there were so many of them. For every Vorgath fighter she destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. Her ammunition counter was dropping fast. All around her, human fighters were engaged in desperate battles. "Blue 7 is hit," someone called out. "Losing power. I am going to have to eject." "Blue 7. DPT. Negative, Blue 7, Tanaka said. "You eject out here, and you are dead. Stay with your bird. We will cover you until you reach the carrier." She checked her tactical display. The human fleet was losing. Ships were being destroyed faster than they could be replaced. The Vorgath just kept coming. Wave after wave of bioships pressing forward. Admiral Okonkwo saw it too. The mathematics were clear. If they stayed and fought, the Vorgath would destroy the entire fleet within the hour. But if they retreated, New Caledonia would fall with minimal resistance. She thought about the 3 million people on the planet below. She thought about the Council's cold calculations, abandoning the outer rim to save the core worlds. She thought about what President Santos had said. "We survive." "All ships," Okonkwo ordered, "begin fighting withdrawal. Carriers, recover all fighters. Ground forces, begin emergency evacuation of New Caledonia. We are pulling back to defensive positions around New Shanghai." Webb received the order and felt both relief and shame. Relief that his ship and crew might survive. Shame that they were abandoning a human world. "Execute retreat pattern Delta," he ordered. "Cover the evacuation transports." The human fleet began pulling back, fighting every meter of space. Ships formed a rear guard, sacrificing themselves to buy time for the evacuation. Tanaka's fighters covered the retreating capital ships, their missiles and guns holding back the Vorgath swarm. On New Caledonia's surface, General Volkov's ground forces worked frantically to load civilians onto every available transport. Mothers carried children. Soldiers helped the elderly. Everyone moved with desperate speed, knowing the Vorgath were coming. 3 million people. Not enough transports. Not enough time. Volkov made the hardest decision of his life. He ordered the transports to launch when they reached capacity, even if that meant leaving people behind. He watched the ships lift off, carrying 2,700,000 evacuees to safety. 300,000 remained on the surface when the Vorgoth bioships entered the atmosphere. Volkov stood with his Marines, weapons ready, as the first bio-soldiers emerged from landing craft. The creatures were nightmares made flesh. Walking on too many legs, attacking with claws and teeth and acid. "Hold the line," Volkov ordered. "Give the last transports time to launch." His Marines opened fire. Bullets and plasma tore into the Vorgoth creatures. The aliens fell, but more came behind them. Always more. The last transport lifted off. Volkov watched it rise into the sky, carrying another 1,000 evacuees. Then he turned back to the battle. His ammunition was running low. Around him, Marines were being overwhelmed by sheer numbers. "General, we need to evacuate now," his aide said. Volkov shook his head. Someone needs to cover the retreat. That is our job. That has always been our job. He raised his rifle and kept firing until the Vorgath swarm finally brought him down. 3 days later, Admiral Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the Unconquered and reviewed the battle reports. They had lost 23 ships at New Caledonia. Over 4,000 personnel dead or missing. The colony itself was lost, consumed by the Vorgath biomass, but they had evacuated 90% of the population. The Council's own projections had estimated 15% maximum survival. Okonkwo opened a channel to all remaining ships. Her face appeared on screens throughout the fleet. I know we lost New Caledonia. I know we took heavy casualties. But I want everyone to understand what we accomplished. The Council told us we could not fight the Vorgath. They said resistance was futile. We just proved them wrong. Yes, we retreated. But we retreated on our terms. And we saved millions of lives. The Vorgath learned today that humanity will not die easily. We will make them bleed for every world they take. We will fight them with everything we have, and we will survive. We will survive. She paused, looking at the faces of her crew. Tired, scared, but not broken. The Vorgath have paused their advance. Our intelligence believes they are analyzing what happened at New Caledonia. They are trying to understand why we fought differently than the other races. Good. Let them wonder. Let them worry. Because the next time they come, we will be ready. Okonkwo ended the transmission. She looked out at the stars, somewhere beyond which the Vorgath were regrouping. They would come again. That was certain. But humanity had sent a message. We will not surrender. We will not despair. We will stand and fight. The galaxy had abandoned them. Fine. Then humanity would take the fight themselves. 6 months had passed since the Battle of New Caledonia. The Vorgath swarm had consumed 12 human colony worlds in that time, but each conquest had cost them more than they expected. Much more. On Apex Prime, the Galactic Council watched humanity's war with increasing fascination. The Grand Chamber's displays now showed constant updates from the Outer Rim. What they saw defied all their models and predictions. High Counselor Sethrak stood before the assembled representatives, his crystalline form pulsing with confused light patterns. The humans should have been eliminated 3 months ago, according to all tactical projections. Yet they persist. More than persist. They are inflicting unprecedented casualties on the Vorgath swarm. Crystallis 7, the young Xanathi scientist, stepped forward. As a junior researcher, they normally would not address the full council. But the data they had compiled was too important to ignore. Honored counselors, I have been studying human combat tactics. They fight in ways we never considered. Ways we specifically avoided because they violate accepted rules of warfare. Crystallis 7 activated a holographic display showing various human engagements. Observe this battle at the New Berlin system. The human fleet was outnumbered 5-1. Instead of fighting, they retreated into an asteroid field. Then, they detonated nuclear devices planted throughout the asteroids, creating a deadly debris storm that destroyed 40% of the Vorgath pursuit force. A murmur ran through the council chamber. Nuclear weapons had been banned in space combat for millennia. They were considered barbaric and indiscriminate. Or this engagement at Proxima Station, Crystallis 7 continued. Human fighters deliberately crashed their ships into Vorgath biocruisers. Suicide attacks that we consider wasteful. But the humans calculate that one pilot trading their life to destroy a ship carrying thousands of Vorgath biosoldiers is tactically sound. Madness, declared a Korvan representative. They are throwing away lives. Are they? Crystallis 7 asked. Their casualty rates are severe, yes, but they are achieving better than a 3-to-1 kill ratio against the Vorgath. No other civilization has managed better than 1-to-1. The humans are actually winning the exchange. 1. Sethrax's form flickered. You are suggesting that barbarism is effective. I am suggesting that the humans fight to win. Not to fight honorably, Crystallis 7 said carefully. They use weapons we abandoned as too cruel. They employ tactics we deemed unacceptable. And it is working. The display showed more examples. Human ships using the gravity wells of planets to slingshot past Vorgoth formations and attack from unexpected angles. Boarding parties physically invading bioships and destroying them from within. Entire colonies being rigged as traps, with hidden bombs and weapons that activated when the Vorgoth landed. The most disturbing development is what they call scorched earth tactics, Crystallis 7 said. When humans abandon a colony world, they destroy everything of value. They poison the atmosphere. They irradiate the surface. They ensure the Vorgoth gain no useful biomass from their conquest. It is environmentally catastrophic. It is also brutally effective. A Lumen representative spoke, her energy form swirling with agitation. This is not war. This is destruction for its own sake. This is survival, Crystallis 7 said quietly. The humans understand something we have forgotten. When facing extinction, there are no rules. There is only winning or dying. Far from the Council's debates, Captain Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, preparing for the most important battle of his career. Proxima Station was a critical supply depot serving 5 human colony worlds. If it fell, those worlds would be cut off from support and would quickly be overrun. The Vorgoth knew this too. They were sending a massive force to take the station. Webb's fleet was outnumbered 3-1. Status on the asteroid field? Webb asked. Commander Torres checked her displays. Engineering teams have finished planting charges throughout sectors 7 through 12. We now have approximately 3,000 asteroids rigged with fusion bombs. Webb nodded. The plan was insane. It would work exactly once before the Vorgoth learned to avoid such traps. But once might be enough. Enemy fleet detected at extreme range, reported Lieutenant Chen. Approximately 200 bioships. Closing at .4 light speed. All ships to defensive positions, Webb ordered. Make sure we are positioned exactly where we need to be. The human fleet consisted of 73 ships of various sizes. They formed up near Proxima Station, seemingly preparing for a conventional defense. But Webb had no intention of fighting conventionally. Range, 200,000 kilometers, Torres said. 150,000. 100,000. The Vorgoth fleet closed in, confident in their numerical superiority. They had learned that humans would retreat when faced with overwhelming odds. They expected the fleet to break and run. Webb waited. His hands were steady on the arms of his command chair, but his heart was pounding. Everything depended on timing. 50,000 kilometers. Vorgoth fleet is entering the asteroid field. Maintain position, Webb said. The bioships pushed forward, weaving between the asteroids. They were hunting, eager to destroy the human fleet. They had no idea they were swimming into a kill zone. 70% of enemy fleet now inside the field, Torres reported. Detonate, Webb ordered. Throughout the asteroid field, 3,000 fusion charges exploded simultaneously. The asteroids shattered into billions of fragments, each piece accelerating outward at tremendous velocity. The expanding cloud of debris hit the Vorgoth fleet like a shotgun blast. Bioships were shredded by the storm of rock and metal. Organic hulls were punctured thousands of times. Smaller craft simply disintegrated. The tightly packed Vorgoth formation became a death trap. Enemy casualties at 40% and rising, Torres said, her voice filled with shock. But the Vorgoth adapted quickly. The surviving ships began targeting the remaining asteroids, destroying them before they could be weaponized. They pushed through the debris field. Damaged, but still deadly. All ships engage, Webb ordered. Target the wounded ones first. The human fleet opened fire. They focused on bioships that had been damaged by the asteroid trap, finishing off crippled vessels before they could regenerate. It was brutal, and efficient. Commander Keiko Tanaka led her fighter squadron into the chaos. The space around Proxima Station was filled with debris, wrecked ships, and desperate combat. Her sensors could barely keep track of all the targets. "Blue Squadron, watch your spacing," she called out. "Don't cluster together. Make them work for every kill." Her fighter dodged through the wreckage of a destroyed biocruiser. Vorgath fighter organisms swarmed around her, their organic weapons spitting acid and plasma. She rolled inverted and dove, her own weapons tracking and firing. "Blue 4 is hit," someone called out. "Losing cabin pressure." "Get to the station, Blue 4, Tanaka ordered. "Emergency crews are standing by." She checked her tactical display. The human fighters were badly outnumbered, but they were holding. Then her sensors detected something new. A massive bioship, larger than anything they had seen before, was pushing through the debris field. It was a Vorgath hive ship, a mobile command vessel that coordinated entire fleets. "All units. Priority target." Webb's voice came over the channel. "That hive ship is controlling the enemy fleet. If we can destroy it, the rest will lose coordination." Tanaka felt her blood run cold. The hive ship was protected by dozens of smaller bioships. Getting close enough to damage it would be suicide. "Blue Squadron," she said quietly. "Form up on me. We are going after that hive ship." "Commander, we will never make it through that defensive screen," one of her pilots said. "Probably not," Tanaka agreed. "But we are going to try anyway. Load all remaining missiles. We are going to hit that thing with everything we have got. Then we are going to fly straight down its throat and blow it apart from the inside." Silence on the comm channel. Then, one by one, her pilots acknowledged the order. They knew what she was asking. They knew the odds. They came, anyway. The 13 fighters of Blue Squadron accelerated toward the hive ship. Defensive fire from Vorgath escorts tore into their formation. Blue 6 exploded. Blue 10 lost a wing and spiraled away. But the rest kept coming. "Missiles away," Tanaka ordered. 23 missiles streaked toward the hive ship. Point defense weapons destroyed most of them, but 4 got through, punching into the creature's organic hull. The hive ship screamed, that terrible sound that resonated through space itself. "All fighters, full speed," Tanaka said. "Follow me in." She aimed her fighter at a massive wound in the hive ship's flank where the missiles had hit. The opening was barely large enough for her small craft. She did not think about the insanity of what she was doing. She just flew. Her fighter screamed through the opening and into the hive ship's interior. It was like flying through a tunnel made of pulsing meat and bone. Organic matter pressed in from all sides. The air was thick with spores and biological waste. Behind her, 4 other fighters made it inside. The rest had been destroyed by defensive fire. "Find the nerve center," Tanaka ordered. "Whatever passes for this thing's brain." They flew deeper into the hive ship, their sensors useless in the organic environment. Tanaka navigated by instinct, following passages that seemed to lead toward the center of the massive vessel. Then she found it. A chamber the size of a stadium, filled with pulsing neural tissue. The hive ship's brain. "All remaining fighters, target that neural mass," Tanaka ordered. "Fire everything." The 5 fighters opened up with every weapon they had. Missiles, guns, energy weapons, all pouring fire into the hive ship's brain. The neural tissue began to rupture and burn. The hive ship screamed again. This time the sound was one of pain and fear. The organic walls around them began convulsing. The passages started closing. "Get out," Tanaka yelled. "Now, now, now." She spun her fighter around and accelerated back the way they had come. The tunnel was collapsing behind her. She saw Blue 8 get crushed by contracting tissue. Blue 11's fighter was caught in a spasm of organic matter and torn apart. Tanaka's fighter burst out of the hive ship just as the entrance sealed behind her. She was alone. The other fighters had not made it out, but the hive ship was dying. She could see it on her sensors. the massive bioship losing cohesion, its coordinating intelligence destroyed. And without the hive ship's guidance, the rest of the Vorgath fleet was falling into chaos. All units, Webb's voice came over the fleet channel. The hive ship is down. Press the attack while they are disorganized. The human fleet surged forward. They targeted confused Vorgath ships that were no longer working in concert. The battle turned from desperate defense to brutal slaughter. 3 hours later, it was over. The Vorgath fleet had been destroyed. Proxima Station was saved. Captain Webb stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and looked at the casualty reports. They had lost 18 ships. Over 2,000 personnel were dead or missing. Blue Squadron had been reduced to a single fighter, but they had won. Against overwhelming odds, humanity had won. Admiral Okonkwo's face appeared on every ship's display. She looked exhausted, but triumphant. "Today we proved something important," she said. "We proved that the Vorgath can be beaten. Yes, we took heavy losses. Yes, we used tactics that the Council would consider barbaric. But we survived. We held the line." She paused, looking directly at the camera. "I want this battle recorded and transmitted to every human ship, every human colony. I want the Vorgath to see it, and I want the Galactic Council to see it too. Let them watch humanity fighting their war for them. Let them see what they abandoned." The recording ended. Webb walked to the observation window and looked out at the wreckage floating around Proxima Station. Debris from both human and Vorgath ships drifted in the void, testament to the brutal combat that had taken place. Commander Torres joined him at the window. "Do you think the Council is watching?" she asked. "I hope so," Webb said. "I hope they see what we are willing to do, to survive. And I hope it keeps them up at night." On Apex Prime, the Council chamber was silent. Every representative had just finished watching the Battle of Proxima Station. The holographic recording showed everything: the asteroid trap, the suicide runs, the fighters flying inside the hive ship. Crystallis 7 stood before them, waiting for someone to speak. Finally, Sethrax broke the silence. "The humans destroyed a Vorgath hive ship. In 32 years of war, we destroyed only 3 such vessels. They killed one in a single battle. At terrible cost," a Corvan representative said. "But they won," Crystallis 7 said. "That is what matters. They won. What are we to make of this?" asked a Lumen representative. "Should we reverse the Exodus Protocol? Return to defend the Outer Rim?" "Ah!" Sethrax's crystalline form dimmed. "The mathematics remain unchanged. The Vorgath still have overwhelming force. These human victories are impressive but ultimately meaningless against the full might of the swarm." "Are they?" Crystallis 7 asked. "The humans have been fighting for 6 months. The Vorgath advance into the Outer Rim has slowed by 40%. That was not predicted by any of our models. Because our models assumed rational behavior," Sethrax said. "The humans are not rational. They cannot sustain this level of casualties indefinitely." Crystallis 7 started to argue, then stopped. There was no point. The Council had made its decision. They would watch from safety while humanity fought alone. But Crystallis 7 noticed something as they looked around the chamber. Some of the younger representatives were watching the human battle recordings with something new in their eyes. Not just fascination, admiration. Perhaps, Crystallis 7 thought. The Council's certainty was not as universal as the Elders believed. In the Outer Rim, on a damaged human cruiser limping back to port, a wounded Marine lay in the medical bay. She had been on the surface of New Berlin when the Vorgath landed. She had fought them hand to hand in the streets. She had watched friends die. She had barely escaped with her life. The medic treating her injuries tried to give her something for the pain, but she refused. "Why not?" the medic asked. The Marine looked at him with hard eyes. "Because pain reminds me I am alive, and as long as I am alive, I can fight." That was humanity's answer to the Vorgath. That was why they kept fighting when mathematics said they should surrender. Pain meant they were alive. And life meant they could fight. Across 12 sectors, on 47 colony worlds, that same sentiment echoed. Humanity held the line. Not because it was rational. Not because the odds were good, but because surrender was not in their nature. The Vorgoth had consumed countless civilizations. But they had never consumed one that refused to be swallowed. They were learning that humanity was different. And that lesson was written in blood and fire across the Outer Rim. In that time, the war had transformed from a desperate retreat into something else entirely. Something the galaxy had not seen in decades. The Vorgoth were losing. Dr. James Park stood in his laboratory deep within Earth's research complex Omega, staring at the holographic display of a Vorgoth bioship's internal structure. Around him, his team worked frantically, analyzing data, running simulations, and testing theories. They had been awake for 36 hours straight, surviving on stimulants and desperation, but they had finally found it. The weapon that could turn the war. Run the simulation again, Park ordered. I want to be absolutely certain, before we present this to Admiral Okonkwo. His assistant, Dr. Elena Vasquez, entered new parameters into the computer. The holographic display showed a Vorgoth bioship being hit by a specialized energy pulse. The ship's organic structure began to vibrate, then shake violently. Within seconds, it tore itself apart from the inside. The resonance frequency is perfect, Vasquez said, excitement filling her voice. It disrupts the neural network that holds the bioship together. The Vorgoth cannot adapt to it because the frequency targets the fundamental structure of their biology. Park allowed himself a small smile. They had studied the data from Crystallis 7. They had analyzed every piece of Vorgoth tissue recovered from battles. They had run thousands of simulations. And finally, they had found the Vorgoth's weakness. Every living thing had a natural frequency at which it vibrated. Hit that frequency with enough energy, and the organism would literally shake itself apart. The Vorgoth, for all their adaptability, could not change their fundamental biological structure. They were vulnerable. How quickly can we weaponize this? Park asked. We can retrofit existing energy weapons within 2 weeks, Vasquez said. Installation across the entire fleet would take perhaps 3 months. Park shook his head. We don't have 3 months. The Vorgoth are massing for another major offensive. We need this weapon deployed in 2 weeks, maximum. That's impossible, Vasquez protested. We would need to work around the clock, coordinate with every shipyard in the system. Then we work around the clock, Park said. Send the specifications to Admiral Okonkwo immediately. Tell her we have found a way to hurt the Vorgoth. Really, hurt them. Admiral Sarah Okonkwo read Dr. Park's report 3 times to make sure she understood it correctly. A weapon that could tear Vorgoth ships apart without conventional explosives. A weapon they could not adapt to or defend against. If the data was accurate, this changed everything. She called an emergency meeting of all fleet commanders. Within hours, holographic projections of dozens of officers filled her conference room. Captain Webb was there, his face showing the strain of a year of constant combat. General Volkov appeared via secure link from the ground forces headquarters. Commander Tanaka attended from the carrier. Valiant. Dr. Park has developed a new weapon, Okonkwo said without preamble. I am transmitting his report to all of you now. Read it carefully. She watched as the officers reviewed the data. She saw their expressions change from skepticism to understanding to excitement. This is real? Webb asked. This actually works? We have tested it on captured Vorgoth tissue samples, Okonkwo said. The results are conclusive. This resonance weapon will be effective against all Vorgoth bioships. How long to deploy? Asked Admiral Chen, no relation to the ambassador, who commanded the Second Fleet. 2 weeks for the first wave of retrofits. Dr. Park's team is prioritizing our combat vessels. Within a month, every ship in the fleet will have resonance weapons. Volkov spoke up. This is the opportunity we have been waiting for. We should launch a major offensive while we have the advantage. Agreed, Okonkwo said. I am designating this offensive Operation Thunderclap. We will hit the Vorgath across 5 sectors simultaneously. We will show them that humanity is not just surviving. We are winning. Over the next 2 weeks, human shipyards worked day and night to install the new resonance weapons. Engineers crawled through access tunnels and maintenance shafts, ripping out old systems and installing new ones. The work was dangerous and exhausting. But everyone understood what was at stake. Captain Webb watched as the Indomitable received her new weapons. The resonance emitters looked similar to standard energy weapons, but the technology inside was revolutionary. Dr. Park himself came aboard to supervise the installation. Will this really work in combat? Webb asked the scientist. Park nodded. We have run every simulation we can think of. The resonance frequency should tear apart any Vorgath bioship it hits. The only limitation is range. You will need to get closer than with conventional weapons. How much closer? Approximately 50,000 kilometers. Well within their effective weapons range. Webb grimaced. So, we have to get close enough to be shot at in order to use this weapon. Yes, Park said. But if it works as designed, you won't need to survive long in that range. The Vorgath ships should be destroyed within seconds of being hit. Should be? Webb asked. Park smiled tiredly. Captain, I am a scientist, not a soldier. I deal in probabilities and simulations. You deal in reality. Soon, we will both find out if my theories actually work. 14 days after Dr. Park's breakthrough, the human fleet was ready. 317 ships had been retrofitted with resonance weapons. It was the largest fleet humanity had assembled since the war began. Admiral Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the Unconquered and looked at the tactical display. 5 task forces had been organized, each one assigned to hit a different Vorgath-held sector. The attacks would happen simultaneously, preventing the Vorgath from reinforcing any single location. All task forces report ready, her operations officer reported. Then let us remind the galaxy what humanity is capable of, Okonkwo said. Across 5 sectors of space, human fleets dropped out of hyperspace and immediately engaged Vorgath forces. The aliens were caught by surprise. They had grown accustomed to humans fighting defensively, protecting colonies and supply lines. This aggressive assault was unexpected. Captain Webb commanded Task Force 3, assigned to hit the Crucible Nebula. Intelligence reported a major Vorgath staging area there, a concentration of over 200 bioships preparing for their own offensive. Enemy fleet detected, Lieutenant Chen reported. Bearing 279er, range 300,000 kilometers. All ships, advance to engagement range, Webb ordered. Prepare resonance weapons. The human fleet accelerated toward the Vorgath. The aliens responded aggressively, their bioships surging forward to meet the attack. They had fought humans before. They knew the tactics. They expected missiles and railguns and nuclear weapons. They were not prepared for what came next. Range, 50,000 kilometers, Torres reported. All ships, fire resonance weapons, Webb commanded. The Indomitable's new weapons activated. Invisible pulses of energy reached out across the void, hitting Vorgath bioships with precisely calibrated frequencies. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the screaming started. Every Vorgath bioship hit by the resonance weapons began to shake. The vibrations started small but rapidly increased in intensity. Organic hulls cracked and split. Internal structures tore themselves apart. Within seconds, the bioships were disintegrating. Their own biology turned against them. My God, Torres whispered. It is working. It is actually working. Webb watched as the Vorgath fleet fell apart. Ship after ship came apart at the seams, unable to withstand the resonance frequencies tearing through their structures. The aliens tried to return fire, but their weapons' targeting systems were disrupted by the same vibrations, destroying their ships. All ships, continue firing, Webb ordered. Don't give them time to adapt. The human fleet poured resonance energy into the Vorgath formation. Bioships that had survived conventional weapons for months were destroyed in seconds. The massacre was brutal and efficient. Commander Tanaka flew her fighter through the chaos, watching Vorgath ships literally fall apart around her. It was the most beautiful and terrible thing she had ever seen. Blue Squadron, target any ships trying to escape, she ordered. Don't let them report back what we are doing. Her fighters pursued fleeing Vorgath vessels, hunting them down with ruthless efficiency. The resonance weapons on the fighters were smaller than those on capital ships, but just as deadly at close range. A Vorgath biocruiser tried to jump to hyperspace. Tanaka accelerated her fighter to maximum speed, closing the distance. She fired her resonance weapon at point-blank range. The biocruiser's jump drive activated just as the ship began tearing itself apart. The combination created a spectacular explosion that lit up the entire battlefield. Splash 1 cruiser, Tanaka reported. Continuing pursuit. Across the battlefield, the Vorgath fleet was being annihilated. What should have been a difficult engagement was turning into a one-sided slaughter. Within an hour, over 90% of the Vorgath ships had been destroyed. The survivors fled in panic. For the first time in 33 years of war, the Vorgath swarm retreated. Webb stood on his bridge, hardly believing what he was seeing. The tactical display showed Vorgath bioships jumping to hyperspace, running away from human forces. He had never seen them retreat before. None of them had. All ships, pursue, he ordered. Don't let them regroup. The human fleet gave chase, hunting down fleeing Vorgath ships. They were predators now, and the Vorgath were prey. On the planet below the Crucible Nebula, General Volkov's Marines were conducting their own assault. They had landed on a Vorgath-infested world that had been consumed 6 months earlier. Their mission was to capture a queen ship, one of the massive biovessels that coordinated Vorgath ground forces. Volkov led his troops through a nightmarish landscape of organic structures and pulsing biomass. Everything on this world had been converted into Vorgath tissue. The ground was made of compacted organic matter. The buildings were grown rather than built. The air smelled of decay and alien biology. Contact front, someone called out. Vorgath biosoldiers emerged from the organic structures, rushing toward the Marines with claws extended and mouths gaping. The creatures were designed for close combat. Fast and deadly. Fire at will, Volkov ordered. His Marines opened up with their weapons. Bullets and plasma tore into the biosoldiers. But for every one they killed, 2 more appeared. The Vorgath were defending their queen ship aggressively. Volkov activated his own weapon, a modified rifle that fired explosive rounds. He shot a biosoldier that was charging at one of his Marines, the explosive round blowing the creature apart. But there were too many of them. We need the resonance weapons online, Volkov called to his technical team. 3 Marines were carrying portable resonance generators, experimental versions of the ship-mounted weapons. They had not been fully tested, but Volkov was gambling that they would work on ground targets as well as space targets. Generators are charging, one of the techs reported. 30 seconds to full power. Everyone pull back to defensive positions, Volkov ordered. Give the generators time to activate. His Marines retreated to a hastily constructed fortification. The Vorgath biosoldiers pressed their attack, climbing over each other in their eagerness to reach the humans. Some of them were cut down by gunfire. Others made it through, only to be killed in brutal hand-to-hand fighting. Generators at full power, the tech announced. Activate them, Volkov ordered. The portable resonance generators came online. Pulses of energy radiated outward, hitting every Vorgath creature within 200 meters. The biosoldiers began to shake and convulse. Their organic structures could not withstand the resonance frequency. Within seconds, they were falling apart, their bodies literally vibrating themselves to pieces. The wave of attacking biosoldiers collapsed. The few survivors fled back into the organic structures. Advance, Volkov ordered. Find that queen ship. His Marines pushed forward, the portable generators clearing a path through the Vorgath bio-soldiers. They fought their way deeper into the converted cityscape, heading toward the largest organic structure on the planet. There, pulsing with malevolent life, was the Queen ship. It was massive, the size of a stadium. Its organic hull covered with defensive weapons and birthing chambers for bio-soldiers. "Set up the generators in a perimeter," Volkov ordered. "We are taking this thing intact." His Marines established positions around the Queen ship. The portable resonance generators were recalibrated to a lower frequency, one that would disable the ship without destroying it completely. They activated the devices. The Queen ship screamed, a psychic wail that made every human's head ache. But it could not move, could not defend itself. The resonance field paralyzed it. Volkov led a team inside the Queen ship. The interior was like nothing he had ever seen, a combination of spacecraft and living organism. They found the neural center, the biological computer that controlled the ship's functions. "Get the technical team in here," Volkov ordered. "I want to know everything this thing knows about Vorgath operations." Within hours, human technicians were downloading data from the Queen ship's neural center. They learned about Vorgath staging areas, fleet compositions, and most importantly, the location of the Vorgath Central Command structure. The data was transmitted immediately to Admiral Okonkwo. While humanity was achieving these victories, the Galactic Council watched in shock. Real-time feeds showed human ships destroying Vorgath fleets that outnumbered them. Ground forces were capturing intact Queen ships. The impossible was becoming reality. Crystallis 7 stood before the Council once again, presenting the latest analysis. "The humans have developed a weapon specifically designed to exploit Vorgath biology. They call it a resonance weapon. It is devastatingly effective. In the last 48 hours, they have destroyed over 600 Vorgath bioships." 600? Sethrax repeated. "That is more than we destroyed in 3 years. Sethrax, live. The humans are not just surviving anymore," Crystallis 7 said. "They are winning, and they did it alone, with no support from the Council." A young Lumen representative spoke up. "Perhaps we should reconsider our position. If the humans can defeat the Vorgath, one species cannot defeat an enemy that has consumed half the galaxy," Sethrax interrupted. But Crystallis 7 noticed something. Around the chamber, younger representatives were nodding in agreement with the Lumen. The Council was divided now, split between the older races who had voted for retreat and the younger ones who saw hope in humanity's resistance. "Some of us wish to help the humans," a Keltharii warrior said, standing from his delegation. "I speak for many younger members of my species. We believe the warriors who fight deserve support from those who retreat." "You would violate the Exodus Protocol?" Sethrax asked. "I would honor the ancient codes of my people," the Keltharii said. "Courage deserves respect. Those who stand deserve support. I will be taking my ship to join the human fleet. Any who wish to come with me are welcome." Around the chamber, other voices joined him. Lumens, who could fight without risk of assimilation. Young Xenathi, who believed the mathematics could be changed. Even a few Korvans, inspired by humanity's refusal to surrender. Sethrax's crystalline form dimmed. "The Council does not approve of this action." "Then the Council may condemn us," the Kelthari said. "But we will fight anyway." Admiral Okonkwo received the message from the Kelthari warrior while she was reviewing battle reports. She read it twice to make sure she understood correctly. "They want to join us?" she asked her communications officer. "Yes, Admiral. Approximately 50 ships from various species. They are volunteering to fight alongside human forces." Okonkwo felt something she had not felt in a year. Hope. Not just hope for survival, but hope for victory. She opened a channel to the approaching alien volunteers. "This is Admiral Sarah Okonkwo of the United Earth Coalition. On behalf of humanity, I welcome you to the fight, but I warn you now. We do not fight the way the Council fights. We break rules. We use weapons others consider barbaric. We will do whatever it takes to win. The Keltharii warrior's face appeared on her screen. He was scarred from many battles, his reptilian features hardened by war, but his eyes were alive with purpose. Admiral Okonkwo, my name is Commander Rakhthar. I have fought in 17 major engagements against the Vorgath. I have seen my people die following the Council's rules and tactics. Perhaps it is time to try the human way. Okonkwo smiled. Then welcome to the fight, Commander. The tide was turning. Humanity had stood alone and survived. They had developed weapons the Vorgath could not defend against. They had inspired other species to join their cause. For the first time since the war began, the Vorgath swarm was afraid, and humanity was just getting started. 18 months had passed since the Galactic Council abandoned humanity to face extinction alone. Now, Ambassador David Chen stood once again in the Grand Chamber of Apex Prime, but this time, he was not asking for help. He was refusing an offer. High Counselor Seth Rax's crystalline form pulsed with agitated light patterns as he read the formal proposal. The Vorgath have agreed to halt their advance at current territorial boundaries. They will consume no more worlds if we cease all military operations against them. This is the negotiated peace we have sought for over 30 years. Around the chamber, representatives from hundreds of civilizations murmured in relief. After decades of war and retreat, the Vorgath were offering to stop. All it would cost was everything they had already lost. The Outer Rim territories will remain under Vorgath control, Seth Rax continued. But the core worlds will be spared. We can rebuild. We can survive. Chen stood at the human delegation podium, his hands calm on the surface but his heart burning with anger. And what of the species that inhabit the Outer Rim? What of humanity? The Council regrets the loss of all civilizations in the occupied territories, a Lumen representative said carefully. But this agreement ensures the survival of the majority. Survival through surrender, Chen said. You want us to accept that our worlds, our colonies, our people will be consumed so that you can have peace. Ambassador Chen, Seth Rax said, his tone almost gentle. Humanity has fought bravely. You have achieved impressive victories. But the mathematics remain clear. The Vorgath still outnumber all our combined forces by significant margins. This negotiated peace is the best outcome we can achieve. Chen looked around the chamber. He saw representatives nodding in agreement. He saw the relief on their faces. They wanted to accept this deal. They wanted the war to be over, even if it meant abandoning billions of lives to the swarm. Humanity rejects this proposal, Chen said clearly. Chen said. Chen said. Chen said. Chen said. Chen said. Chen said. Silence fell over the chamber. You reject peace? Asked a Korvan representative, confused. I reject surrender disguised as peace, Chen said. The Vorgath offer to stop consuming worlds, not because they are defeated, but because they want to consolidate their gains. They want you to stand down while they digest everything they have taken. Then, when they are ready, they will come for the core worlds too. But that is speculation, Seth Rax said. It is reality, Chen replied. The Vorgath are not a civilization that negotiates. They are a force of consumption. They do not stop because they are satisfied. They stop because they are hurt. He activated a holographic display showing recent battle data. In the past 6 months, humanity and our volunteer allies have destroyed over 2,000 Vorgath bioships. We have liberated 3 colony worlds. We have captured queen ships and learned about their command structure. We know where their central nexus is located. The Prime Hive, Crystallis 7 said quietly from their position in the chamber. Chen nodded. The Prime Hive. The central intelligence coordinating all Vorgath operations. It is located in the Abyss sector, surrounded by the largest concentration of bioships in the galaxy. Intelligence estimates suggest destroying the Prime Hive would eliminate the swarm's coordination, leaving individual bioships without higher direction. Attacking the Prime Hive would be suicide, Sethrak said flatly. The defenses are too strong. Even the full might of the Council's fleets could not reach it. Then it is good that humanity does not fight like the Council, Chen said. We do not calculate odds and retreat when the mathematics look bad. We find a way to win anyway. He straightened, looking directly at the High Counselor. Humanity will not be accepting this negotiated peace. We will not stop fighting. We will not surrender 1 inch of territory without making the Vorgath bleed for it. And we will destroy the Prime Hive. Because that is the only way this war truly ends. You would doom your entire species for pride? A Delphian representative asked. No, Chen said. We risk everything for survival. Because we understand that this so-called peace is just delayed extinction. The Vorgath will come for all of us eventually. Better to fight them now, while we still can. He prepared to leave the podium, then paused. The Council abandoned humanity when we needed you most. We remember. But we do not hold grudges against those brave enough to fight. Any species, any ships, any warriors willing to help us end this war are welcome to join the assault on the Prime Hive. We attack in 3 weeks. Be there, or watch from safety. The choice is yours. Chen left the chamber. Behind him, chaos erupted as the Council debated his declaration. 3 weeks later, Admiral Sarah Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the Unconquered and watched the largest fleet ever assembled by humanity. 643 human warships of every class. The battered survivors of 18 months of brutal warfare, now upgraded with resonance weapons and ready for one final battle. But they were not alone. Commander Rockthar's Kelthari battlecruisers formed a wing of the fleet, their red hulls painted with white stripes, representing honor in battle. Lumen energy warriors floated in specialized containment ships, beings of pure energy immune to Vorgoth assimilation. Young Xanathi vessels, defying Council orders, had brought their advanced sensors and weapons technology. Even a few ships from other species had arrived. Corvins, seeking redemption for their species' vote to retreat. Delphians, who believed mathematics could be defied. Dozens of races, each contributing what they could to this desperate assault. Final fleet count, 1,047 ships, reported Okonkwo's operations officer. The largest assembled force since the war began. And we are going to need every single one, Okonkwo said. She activated the fleet-wide channel. All commanders. This is Admiral Okonkwo. In 1 hour, we jump to the Abyss sector. Intelligence estimates we will face between 3,000 and 5,000 Vorgath bioships defending the Prime Hive. She let that sink in. Even with their new weapons and volunteer allies, they were still outnumbered, at least 3 to 1. I will not lie to you. Many of us will not survive this battle. The Vorgoth will throw everything they have at us. But if we succeed, if we destroy the Prime Hive, we end this war. We save not just humanity, but every species in the galaxy from eventual consumption. Okonkwo paused, thinking about all the people who had died to get them to this point. The civilians lost at New Caledonia. The Marines who held the line at New Berlin. The fighter pilots who flew suicide runs into hive ships. General Volkov, who gave his life to save evacuees. The Council called us young and naive. They said we did not understand the reality of warfare. They were wrong. We understand perfectly. War is not about mathematics and probability. It is about will and determination. It is about refusing to accept the impossible. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity is made of. Today, we hold the line one last time. She closed the channel and turned to her crew. Take us to the jump point. It is time to end this. The assembled fleet moved as one. Hundreds of ships of different designs and origins, united by a single purpose. They formed up at the jump coordinates, engines burning, weapons charged, every crew member ready for what was coming. Fleet is in position. the navigation officer reported. Initiate jump. Okonkwo ordered. All ships. Stay in formation. We come out fighting. Okonkwo. Okonkwo. Reality twisted as the fleet jumped to hyperspace. For a few seconds that felt like eternity. They traveled faster than light, crossing the distance to the Abyss sector in moments. Then they emerged into hell. The Abyss sector earned its name. It was a region of space so dense with consumed matter that light itself seemed dimmed. Dead worlds orbited dying stars, their surfaces covered in Vorgath biomass. Debris fields stretched for millions of kilometers, the wreckage of civilizations that had fallen to the swarm. And at the center of it all, the Prime Hive. Captain Marcus Webb stared at the massive structure on his displays and felt his breath catch. The Prime Hive was enormous, larger than Earth's moon, a pulsing organic sphere that coordinated all Vorgath operations. Bioships orbited it in complex patterns, thousands of vessels acting as living shields. My God, Commander Torres whispered. How do we even approach that? Carefully, Webb said, and with lots of fire. The Vorgath fleet reacted immediately to the arrival of the Allied force. Bioships swarmed from the Prime Hive's orbit, forming into attack formations. More emerged from hiding places throughout the sector. Within minutes, over 4,000 Vorgath vessels were accelerating toward the Allied fleet. All ships, engage, Okonkwo ordered. Task Force Alpha, you are the hammer. Drive straight for the Prime Hive. Task Force Beta, you are the shield. Hold the flanks and prevent encirclement. Task Force Gamma, seek and destroy any hive ships coordinating their fleet. The battle began with a fury that dwarfed anything that had come before. Thousands of ships on both sides opened fire simultaneously. Space filled with weapons, fire, missiles, energy beams, and resonance pulses. The resonance weapons proved their worth immediately. Vorgath bioships that would have withstood conventional fire for hours came apart in seconds under the resonance barrage. But there were so many of them. For every bioship destroyed, 2 more took its place. Commander Tanaka led what remained of Blue Squadron, now rebuilt to 30 fighters, through the chaos. Her sensors could barely track all the targets. Vorgath fighters were everywhere, mixing with the capital ship engagement. Blue Squadron, watch your spacing, she called out. Don't bunch up, pick your targets, and make every shot count. She rolled her fighter through a stream of bioplasma, feeling the heat even through her shields. Her targeting computer locked onto a Vorgath cruiser, and she fired her resonance weapon. The cruiser shuddered and began breaking apart, but her sensors showed hundreds more where that came from. The fleet pushed deeper into the Abyss sector. Task Force Alpha, led by the Dreadnought, unconquered, drove toward the Prime Hive like a spear. They left a trail of destroyed bioships in their wake. But they also took terrible losses. Human cruisers exploded. Kelthari battlecruisers were overwhelmed by swarms of biofighters. Xenathi vessels sacrificed themselves to protect damaged allies. Commander Rakthar's battlecruiser was hit by multiple bioplasma weapons. The Kelthari warrior stood on his burning bridge and refused to retreat. My ship is dying, he reported to Okonkwo. But I can still fight, redirecting all power to weapons. I will clear a path for the dreadnoughts. Rakhthar, you need to evacuate. I came here to fight with honor, Rakhthar said. Let me die the same way. His battlecruiser, trailing atmosphere and debris, accelerated toward a cluster of Vorgath hive ships. Every weapon on the damaged vessel fired at once, pouring destruction into the enemy formation. Then Rakhthar rammed his ship into the largest hive ship, the resulting explosion taking out 4 more Vorgath vessels. Rakhthar's sacrifice has created an opening, the tactical officer reported. Path to the Prime Hive is clear. All ships, follow me through, Okonkwo ordered. We honor the fallen by finishing what they started. The unconquered led the surviving ships of Task Force Alpha through the gap Rakhthar had created. They were close now, close enough to see the Prime Hive's grotesque surface crawling with activity. But the defense was fierce. Bioships threw themselves at the approaching fleet with suicidal fury. They knew what humanity intended. They would do anything to protect the Prime Hive. Captain Webb's Indomitable took hit after hit. The destroyer's shields failed. Hull breaches vented atmosphere. Half the crew was dead or wounded. But Webb kept his ship moving forward. "We are not going to make it," Torres said, her voice calm despite the chaos. Webb looked at his battered ship, at his exhausted crew, at the Prime Hive looming ahead. He thought about everything they had sacrificed to get here. He thought about humanity standing alone against the darkness. "Then, we make our deaths count," he said. "Redirect all power to engines. Set course directly for the Prime Hive. We are ramming that thing." "Sir, we have over 200 people still alive on this ship," Torres protested. "And billions more depending on us," Webb said. "I am sorry, Commander. But this is how it has to be." He opened a channel to the Unconquered. "Admiral, the Indomitable is too damaged to continue. We are initiating a ramming attack on the Prime Hive's northern hemisphere. Make our sacrifice count. Captain Webb." Okonkwo's voice was heavy with emotion. "You have served with honor. Go with the knowledge that humanity will remember." Webb smiled sadly. "Just make sure we win, Admiral. That is all the memory I need." He closed the channel and turned to his crew. "Anyone who wants to evacuate has 30 seconds to get to the escape pods. No judgment. No shame. You have all done more than enough." Every single crew member stayed at their posts. Torres reached over and squeezed Webb's hand. "It has been an honor serving with you, Captain." "The honor was mine, Commander." "Helm. Full speed ahead. Let's show these things what humanity is made of." The Indomitable accelerated toward the Prime Hive. Vorgath bioships tried to intercept, but the destroyer's resonance weapons cleared a path. Webb activated the ship's self-destruct sequence, setting every fusion reactor to overload simultaneously. The destroyer struck the Prime Hive's surface like a missile, penetrating deep into the organic structure. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the fusion reactors detonated. The explosion tore a massive crater in the Prime Hive's surface. Organic matter vaporized. Biosystems failed. The Prime Hive screamed, a psychic wail that echoed across the entire sector. "Webb has breached the outer layers," the tactical officer reported to Okonkwo. "The Prime Hive is wounded. All ships, target the breach," Okonkwo ordered. "Pour everything we have into that wound." The Allied fleet concentrated their fire on the crater Webb had created. Resonance weapons tore deeper into the Prime Hive's structure. Nuclear weapons detonated inside the organic mass. Energy weapons burned away biological tissue, but the Prime Hive was enormous. Even damaged, it would take hours to destroy it completely. Hours they did not have. The Vorgath fleet was rallying, preparing for a massive counterattack. Commander Tanaka saw the problem. The Prime Hive's defenses were too strong. They needed someone to get inside and destroy it from within. Just like she had done to the Hive ship at Proxima Station. She made her decision. "Blue Squadron. This is Commander Tanaka. I am going after the Prime Hive's core. Continue the assault from out here." "Commander, that is suicide," one of her pilots protested. "Probably," Tanaka agreed. "But someone has to do it. Keep fighting. Make it count." She did not wait for acknowledgement. She turned her fighter toward the breach in the Prime Hive's surface and accelerated to maximum speed. Defensive fire filled the space around her. Her shields failed. Her fighter took hits. But she kept flying. Tanaka's fighter screamed through the crater and into the Prime Hive's interior. It was like flying through a living nightmare. Organic tunnels pulsed around her. Biosystems tried to close off her path. She fired her weapons continuously, blasting through obstructions. She flew deeper and deeper, following her instincts and sensor readings toward the Prime Hive's core. The passages grew tighter. The organic matter pressed in from all sides. Her fighter was taking damage from simply scraping against the walls. Then she broke through into a massive chamber. The Prime Hive's neural center stretched before her. A brain the size of a city, pulsing with malevolent intelligence. This was the mind coordinating all Vorgath operations. This was what needed to be destroyed. Tanaka armed every weapon on her fighter. Missiles, guns, resonance emitters. She set them all to fire simultaneously. Then, she locked her course directly at the neural center. "This is Commander Keiko Tanaka, of Blue Squadron," she transmitted on all channels. "If anyone is listening, tell my family I love them. Tell humanity that we held the line." She fired everything and felt her fighter shudder from the recoil. Missiles streaked toward the neural mass. Resonance pulses tore into the organic tissue. Her guns blazed until they ran dry. Then, still accelerating, her fighter struck the Prime Hive's brain. The explosion was relatively small compared to the Prime Hive's massive size. But Tanaka had hit the exact right spot. The neural center, already damaged by her weapon's fire, could not withstand the impact. It began to fail. The Prime Hive's scream changed. It went from rage and pain to something that might have been fear. Then, it went silent. Throughout the Abyss sector, every Vorgath bioship suddenly stopped moving. The hive-mind connection was severed. They drifted in space, their coordination gone, their higher intelligence destroyed. Admiral Okonkovo watched as the Vorgath fleet fell into chaos. Bioships collided with each other. Some simply shut down completely. Others began attacking anything nearby, friend and foe alike. Their base instincts taking over without the Prime Hive's guidance. "The Prime Hive is dead," her operations officer reported in disbelief. Commander Tanaka succeeded. She actually succeeded. Did, Commander Tanaka. Okonkwo felt tears running down her face. She did not try to wipe them away. They had won. After 18 months of desperate fighting, after losing so many people, after being abandoned by the galaxy, humanity had won. "All ships, cease fire on the Vorgath fleet," she ordered. "Target only vessels that actively attack us. Begin recovery operations for survivors." She opened a channel to the entire Allied fleet. "This is Admiral Okonkovo. The Prime Hive has been destroyed. The Vorgath swarm is broken. We have won. Well to have today. Well to have today. Well to have today." The cheering that erupted across hundreds of ships could probably be heard on Earth. 5 years later, Ambassador David Chen stood in the Grand Chamber of Apex Prime for the last time. But now he stood at the center of the chamber, not at a delegation podium. The Council had convened to officially grant humanity full membership with equal status to the elder races. High Counselor Sethrax, his crystalline form now showing respectful purple hues, read the formal declaration. "The Council recognizes that humanity's courage and innovation saved galactic civilization from extinction. We grant Earth and all human colonies full Council membership with voting weight equal to that of the founding races." Around the chamber, every representative stood and applauded. It was an unprecedented honor, but Chen felt only sadness. He thought about all the people who had died to reach this moment. Webb, who rammed his ship into the Prime Hive. Tanaka, who flew into the neural center knowing she would not return. Volkov, who held the line at New Caledonia. Rakhthar, who died with honor among the stars. After the ceremony, Chen walked to the memorial that had been erected in the council chambers. It was a simple monument, a black stone wall engraved with words in every galactic language. "They fought when we retreated. They believed when we despaired. They held the line when all others had fallen back. We abandoned them. They saved us anyway." Crystallis 7 joined him at the memorial. The Xenothi scientist had become humanity's strongest advocate in the council. "The humans taught us an important lesson," Crystallis 7 said. "Survival belongs not to the wise, but to the stubborn." Chen smiled. "We prefer the term determined." "Of course. I have been meaning to ask, what will you do now? You could have any position in the new council. Chen shook his head. I am going home to Earth. My time as ambassador is done. Let someone younger take the position. Someone who was not here when the council voted to abandon us. You still harbor resentment? No, Chen said honestly. I understand why the council made the choice they did. Fear is powerful. But I will never forget that humanity stood alone, and I will make sure no human ever forgets it either. Back on Earth, Admiral Sarah Okonkwo, now elderly and retired, stood before a class of new coalition naval officers. These young men and women had never known the war. They had grown up in peace, with humanity respected and honored throughout the galaxy. You will learn many things at this academy, Okonkwo told them. You will learn tactics and strategy. You will learn about weapons systems and fleet operations. You will study the great battles and the legendary commanders. She paused, looking at their young faces. But the most important lesson I can teach you is this. Never, ever, surrender to the impossible. When mathematics says you cannot win, find a way to change the mathematics. When logic demands retreat, have the courage to advance anyway. When the galaxy abandons you, stand alone and fight. One of the students raised a hand. Admiral, is it true that during the war, you used tactics that the council considered barbaric? Okonkwo smiled. Yes. We broke their rules. We fought dirty. We did things that made the elder races uncomfortable, and we survived because of it. 7. Do you have any regrets? Another student asked. Okonkwo thought about that question carefully. She thought about the thousands of people who died under her command. She thought about the moral compromises and brutal tactics. She thought about all of it. My only regret, she said finally, is that we had to fight it all. But since we did, I regret nothing about how we fought. We did what was necessary. We survived. And in the end, that is all that matters. The class ended, and Okonkwo walked slowly back to her office. On her desk was a message from the Galactic Defense Force, the new, unified military created to prevent another Vorgath-level threat. They wanted her to train their commanders in Terran combat doctrine. The elder races had spent thousands of years developing their military traditions. Now, they wanted to learn from humanity's mere 3 centuries of space warfare. Okonkwo opened her computer and began writing the first lesson plan. She started with the most important principle. War is not won by those with the best technology or the greatest numbers. War is won by those who refuse to lose. Somewhere in the Outer Rim, on a frontier world being rebuilt after Vorgath occupation, a child asked her grandmother about the war. The old woman, who had been evacuated from New Caledonia as a young girl, told her about the day the aliens abandoned them. We thought we were going to die, the grandmother said. The council retreated. The Vorgath were coming. We had no hope. But you survived, the child said. We survived because humanity decided that if the galaxy would not fight for us, we would fight for ourselves. We stood alone, and we won. The child thought about that. What happened to the Vorgath? They are still out there, in isolated pockets. But without the Prime Hive, they are just animals. Dangerous, but manageable. The real Vorgath threat died when Commander Tanaka flew into that neural center. She must have been very brave. They were all brave. Captain Webb, General Volkov, Commander Rockthar, and thousands more whose names we will never know. They all did their part. After the towns. Thank you for watching. And then people see you in H. They all did their part. The child looked up at the stars, visible through the dome of the rebuilt colony. Grandma, if the aliens ever abandon us again, what should we do? The old woman smiled and hugged her granddaughter. We do what we always do, sweetheart. We stand our ground, we take the fight ourselves, and we hold the line. That was humanity's legacy. Not just the victory over the Vorgath, not just the council membership or the respect of elder races, but the knowledge, passed down through generations, that humanity never surrenders, never gives up, never accepts the impossible. The galaxy had learned that lesson the hard way. They had abandoned humanity expecting to watch another civilization fall to the swarm. Instead, they witnessed the birth of a new philosophy of warfare, a philosophy that said courage mattered more than calculations. That will could overcome probability. That sometimes, the impossible was just the difficult waiting to be achieved. Every race abandoned them when the mathematics demanded retreat. But humanity said, then we take the fight ourselves. And they held the line.